Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets, or you can subscribe to the channel, click that notifications button, and get a new notification whenever a new video is uploaded. Daniel Dubois has given a very fiery interview, whetting the appetite of boxing fans, heavyweight boxing fans up and down the country. He has been speaking with some real verve, talking about how he feels that the criticism he received, being called a coward, was very, very unfair. And this is interesting, you know, because he seems to have that bit between his teeth now. And I've said this in the past. Quitting in that way, a lot of people seem to think, oh, once a quitter, always a quitter. That can be the case. Someone just doesn't have the heart. We saw that with Malik Scott, a very, very talented heavyweight. Lost to Derek Chisora, seemed to pack it in that fight when he was doing really well, but the bodywork was taking its toll. And then after he quit that one time, he was never the same again. And a rumor has it he was in a sparring session with Tyson Fury. Fury perforated his eardrum. And ever since then, which followed the Chisora fight shortly afterwards, I believe, he's never been the same. He was always looking for the easy way out, right? But then there's a flip side to that coin. You got the likes of David Haye, who, the whole Toegate situation, everyone called him a coward. Oh yeah, my big toe. There were memes about it, running jokes about it, him being mocked for years. But then look what happened when his Achilles heel went against Tony Bellew. He hung in there and he showed a warrior spirit. And it might have been because of a fear of being ridiculed again. People fear different things. Daniel Dubois might have that element to him where he is so afraid at 23 years old. He's still 23 years old. Of being ridiculed, of being disrespected. Everybody was talking about the new star of boxing, a future heavyweight threat, and all of a sudden, he's a coward? You think that's easy to deal with, mentally, emotionally, when you're a heavyweight boxer who's a young man, 23 years old? So he's come out and he's given an interview. And he says, they all attacked me. All the big boys on TV, all the boxing guys, they knew what the situation was. They could have been a bit more empathetic. The boxing business teaches you a lot about different people and what they're thinking. They can't wait to see you lose sometimes. Was I hurt by it? It was strange. I wasn't really hurt. I have a stone heart. I can't be shaken, but it was a weird one. I guess them guys, they have a right to talk about it. I have seen it happen to fighters before. They slag you off, and now it's happening to me. I should have been expecting it. He then goes on to question Carl Frampton, and he basically says that, well, he doesn't really question Carl Frampton, but he questions the narrative. He says nobody called Carl Frampton a quitter last week when the towel went in. He didn't make a big fuss and furore about being taken out of the fight. So he brings that up. And then this is when the interview really, really gets interesting. I have to be ready to fight whoever they bring at me now. Guys that weren't taking the fight before, they will have it now. They will try and copy Joe, and I'm looking forward to that. Seeing what they have got up against me. They will think the aura is broken, and they will think they'll have me, that I'm vulnerable. They can try to mess with me. They can insult me if they want and talk about what happened, but I'm relishing that prospect and seeing these fighters that were hiding before, now they'll take the fight. One day, I would like to get in the ring with Dillian Whyte and show him just how much of a quitter I am. All of it will give me experience, the experience I need as a fighter. I'll get better fights under my belt. He's then asked if he felt any shame after quitting. And he pauses, the article says. And he replies, I was gutted. I was devastated. My whole thing up to then was winning. And then it was like, what does this mean? I didn't understand it. I didn't want to dwell on it. I want to lift myself up and carry on. He goes on to explain that he's going to use this whole saga to inspire him. And he says, I think about what people said about me and what bravery means. Bravery is going out and doing what you have to do, no matter how you feel about it. I prepared my body well. I'm as strong as most heavyweights. The next part is the mind. And which is interesting, right? So he's acknowledging that he has to work on the mind. The next part is the mind. It's going out there and executing a plan and not wavering for a second, not being distracted. Bravery is many things. It is having the will to win and going out and facing your fears. The fight made me question a few things about how good I really am, what went wrong, can I do this really, When I thought about fighting again, I didn't falter. But there are questions you have to ask yourself as a fighter if the hunger isn't what it should be. It didn't make me question my courage. I know I have the heart of a lion. I'm up there with the strongest guys out there. I will keep coming no matter what. The goal is still to win a world title and to hold on to it. Now, this is interesting because what he's saying is there's a differentiation between a hunger to win and courage. He's saying he wasn't afraid. He didn't quit because he had no heart. He's questioning whether he really wanted it. That's what he's ultimately asking himself. But at no point did he stumble or falter or delay when he thought about getting back in the ring. He wants to fight again. And he's saying, I can't make the same mistakes again. I'll mature from it, grow up, and see this boxing game for what it really is and how cruel it is. And I have to be just as brutal. Maybe there was complacency. There was a lot of hype. Maybe I started to believe some of it. The whole thing was a learning experience. Maybe there were things I'd have done differently, but I have no excuses. This seems like a man who has looked into his inner self and questioned himself. He's questioned himself. He's questioned various aspects of who he is and how he is as an athlete, how much hunger he's got, what he wants from this sport going forward. And you have to have a lot of respect for a guy that's willing to do that at 23 years old. He's having to face certain questions that many people don't face perhaps until they're midlife or later sometimes. Some people never have to look into the mirror and question, are you really the person you thought you are? The fact that he's calling out Dillian Whyte is obviously due to hurt pride. You know, Dillian Whyte mocked him and called him a coward in retaliation to Daniel Dubois laughing at Dillian Whyte losing to Povetkin. But it doesn't start there. There was a bit of a beef before them. I don't know who started it, but who cares? They're heavyweights. They're supposed to be rivals. Who cares, right? Who started it? The fact of the matter is Daniel Dubois wants Dillian Whyte. He wants to shut his mouth for laughing at him. Now, what does that tell you? To me, it tells me that he's leaning more towards the David Haye terms of reaction, where he wants to silence the critics and show he's got heart, compared to Malik Scott, where he's folded and he's just looking for another payday and he's not really there to try and take over the sport. He's 23 years old. You can say what you want about Daniel Dubois. Think about how good this guy could be with another 10 years of development. He'll only be 33 years old. He's a massive talent. Don't get it twisted just because he had one bad night, and yes, he might have quit. Don't assume that this guy has a hype job. He can fight. He's 23 years old. Now, the physical damage of this is another thing. We don't know how that's going to affect him. But I've seen a lot of people talk about things like, look at Ebony Bridges, right? Ebony Bridges didn't quit and her black eye was huge. It's a different type of injury. When I was young, when I was a kid, I got hit in the head with a cricket bat. And I've still got a scar on my eyebrow from it, right? And I didn't feel anything. But it caught me on the bone, the bridge, the actual eyebrow. And there was blood gushing everywhere, but I didn't feel it at all. The next morning, I couldn't open my eye. The top of the eye caved over the entire eye. It was huge, massive, massive black eye. It looked like Ebony Bridges' eye. It was almost hanging though. So it looked a bit different, but it was as big as that. It looked worse than Daniel Dubois. But the injury was on the bone. Yeah, I had stitches, but there was no eye damage. Well, but the same with Ebony Bridges, perhaps. You don't know what type of injury it was. Just because it looks terrible, it might not be terrible. By the same token, Daniel Dubois, you don't know what level of nerve involvement he had. And the nerves in the eye go directly to the brain. Okay? So one of the tests that they do when they're looking to see if you've got MS, multiple sclerosis, is an eye test. And they look at the nerve in the eye to see. This is towards the latter end, though, of MS. So it's not really diagnostic. They're just looking to see how far along you are with the situation. But sometimes it can cause the sheath around the nerve in the eye to wear away. Okay? So the point is, the eye and the brain are very closely linked. Now, if he's got damage to a nerve, an optic nerve, well, you can't even potentially imagine. I mean, I've never had an injury like that. You can't imagine potentially what the pain's like. It could be one of those situations where they're just touching, and because it's nerve damage, he's in agony, let alone being jabbed in the face by someone of the skill set and ability of Joe Joyce. So while it's easy for us to sit here and say he's a quitter, he's this, he's that, only he knows how he was feeling. If there is no long-term damage, it is a freak injury. You know, you're not always going to get eye injuries like that in boxing. And now he might have the bit between the teeth, and he might be working on how to bypass a consistent jab like that against a mover like Joe Joyce. Well, if he marries that to his existing game, because he's already got terrific jab of his own, if he can be more evasive, if he can marry that as well with that bit between his teeth where he wants to silence the critics, then don't sleep on Daniel Dubois. Because he's got the youth on his side, he's got a lot of strength and power, and not everybody's as evasive as Joe Joyce. Not everybody's got an iron chin like Joe Joyce. Dillian Whyte is a warrior, no doubt about it. Proven warrior. Proven. Proper badass, grade A. But he doesn't move, I don't believe. Certainly not with his feet, as well as Joe Joyce. His jab is very good. I'm not sure it's as consistent as Joyce's. I don't think he's as big either. So if he doesn't move as well as Joe Joyce, he's more of an easier target to find. Well, Daniel Dubois has got the power to clean anyone's clock. Now, I'm not saying Dubois beats Whyte at this stage, but like I said, he's 23 years old. Who knows how he develops in 2-3 years from now? Let me know what you think. Is there a way back for Daniel Dubois? Can he use this to actually strengthen his resolve? Who do you want to see him return against? And I'm not talking about the immediate comeback fight. That's going to be against someone who's going to blow away, right? But how far do you think before he has... How many fights? 1, 2 fights before he has a proper test? And then who do you want that test to be? Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.